March 2022 meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. Very happy to see everybody. Today we're going to be talking about Made to Stick by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. A book you hear a lot about in marketing circles, and a lot referred to in a lot of other books, and also as I read it, and we'll see what you all thought, but definitely there were some things you could see from other books. I mean, they talked about, expressly talked about some other books, but thought there were definitely some crossovers that were always nice to reinforce what kind of things are going on. So just we'll just throw out a question here. Hey, Hannah, glad you made it. Throw out a question here just to get started. So what did anybody think? Anybody got any initial thoughts, feedback from this book? Did you like it? What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked that it was, little bites that you can really use that reinforce what you're doing already. Makes you feel a little better sometimes. The simple, keep it simple. I mean, we hear that all the time. I think one of the things that we struggle with here, and probably everybody does, is that we think everybody knows everything already. And you've probably said the same thing 500 times. And, you kind of are saying the same things over and over again. But if you think about your own self, and you can't remember, I mean, you see 50,000 things thrown at you every day, and then they're like, oh yeah, I want to do that, or oh, I forgot about that. So it just really was a good reinforcement for me, and some new ideas. I mean, I think the thing that I struggle with the most right now is just the stories, telling stories. I've been wanting to do more of that, and of course it takes a lot more time.
Yeah, it does.
So but and you hear that all the time, the stories, telling stories. So that's one thing that I really want to do a better job of. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Good. Yeah, I agree. I think it was, I like that too. I like the simple. The simple is a really neat way to get the idea across. And always great to reinforce stories. So and that was where I thought it had some similarities to the very first book that we read as a club, Story Brand. So there was a lot of similar kind of things in there, that same sort of formula. What other thoughts? What other initial thoughts anybody have about reading the book?
Well, I liked it. But there were a lot of things that, I kept going back and forth, because it was like, okay, well, that's new. That's something I've heard 1,000 times, and I kept
Always,
going back and forth like that. But then I got to thinking about, okay, so, we've been meeting for how long now? And how many of these books have we read? And, and so then I looked at it from the perspective of, well, if somebody was only going to read one marketing book, if they were only ever going to read one book, I think this one does a pretty good job of kind of hitting all the bases, so to speak. It's so, like, if you are only ever going to read one book, this kind of touches on everything. So I mean, that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah. When we read a lot of books, we definitely, especially a lot of marketing books, which is like why it's kind of cool that we've also expanded out into beyond marketing a little bit and some other things. So, but definitely. I mean, the one that I always think is, you hear in so many books, especially marketing books, the John F. Kennedy thing about the, go to the moon. It's a great example. I mean, you can't deny it, but after you've heard it from 6 different authors, like, well, okay, yes, we already kind of know this, but somebody originated that. So any other thoughts? Anybody else have any other thoughts just generally about the book?
Yeah, I think for me, it really reiterated the importance of a strategic plan. And understanding, what are like the key messages or core messages we really want people to understand, and where are we going. Secondary thought was that they must have had a lot of pressure in writing this book, because if you're writing a book about making stuff interesting, you better show you're credible at it. And I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, that is a big big commitment to write a book calling How Sticky Is Everything, and this is all going to be sticky. You're going to remember all this stuff. So yeah, they did a pretty good job of some of that. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some things that that I don't think you know, the one, and like what you were talking about, Mary, the that whole idea throughout, the curse of knowledge, you know, the that is really, to me, that really hit home too. It's like, yeah, it is so hard not to know, not to pretend like you're the customer that doesn't know all the things that you know. And I even did the so if, for those of you who haven't read the book, you know, I know some people come here and haven't read the book, and that's cool. I'm really glad that you're here. You know, one of the big themes in the book is this idea of the curse of knowledge, and it's, you know, pretty easy concept, I guess, to understand, but very hard to live in that world. So it's just, you don't know what, you know, you can't unknow things once you know them, and you can't pretend like you're a customer. It's difficult to pretend like you're a customer who doesn't know about the products and things that you have. And so when you talk about things, it's very easy for you to let slip in. I mean, the easy thing would be jargon and language and things like that, you know, that are comfortable and familiar to us, but not to everybody. And there's this really interesting experiment that they talk about in the book, the tappers and listeners game. So I hadn't heard about that one before, but it's when you tap out a song, you're the one, you know what song you're tapping, but somebody listening to you, all they're hearing is kind of a series of random disconnected taps. And I actually did it with my team. And we were in a meeting, and that concept came up. I was like, oh, let's try this. And I thought, even when I did it, there was a lot of knowing looks from the thing that I was tapping. And I thought, oh man, this isn't going to work. This is going to stink. They're all going to guess. I was tapping, like they said in the book, actually, I was tapping the Star Spangled Banner, and two people were just absolutely sure. They were like, oh, that's Happy Birthday. And I was like, oh, wow, it really works. So, so it was really cool to play around with that. But yeah, that idea of the curse of knowledge was something that is kind of the villain of marketing, and making messages sticky was something that was really interesting. So yeah, any specific examples that anybody had from the book that they remember, that thought that might be something you may either share with somebody or apply to the things that you do?
I don't know that it's easy to apply, but I liked the story about the journalism teacher.
I know.
And how, because as I was reading it, I was thinking of like how I would have written the lead. And then when the answer was like, oh, it's that there's no class. Like, oh my gosh, that's, but I think I often do find myself doing that same thing when I'm writing messages about the library. Is it's like I'm forgetting, oh no, what's like the big deal for the students, or why does the faculty care about this? So that was a good reminder.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Again, yeah, with writer Nora Ephron talking about how, in her journalism class, they had all this great stuff to talk about, all these rich speakers and everything. And then the lead turns out that if you're writing a paper to high schoolers, the most important thing to them is no school on Thursday. So was this the book? I always get them confused. Was this the book that also said, like, there was one person who said, if I have 2 hours to write a story, I'll spend an hour and a half writing the lead because it's that important to get a good lead. So I thought that was, I can't remember if that was this book or another book, but yeah, those things about writing the lead. Yeah, it's definitely something that's important. And that whole idea of getting the message up first, getting the most important message to the beginning. And yeah, something that I definitely think that we could all apply in all the work that we do. That's really good. The other one, Mary, that you were talking about, I think a little bit that you maybe were, that I heard when you were saying was that idea of commander's intent, which I thought was really, really cool. So that was really neat. And I've used that already in a couple other conversations. So yeah. So let's see. So there was a couple examples. Trying to find my notes now. What other examples, while I'm finding my notes, what other examples does anybody have? Any stories that stuck with them from the book that they particularly thought were interesting or useful, or something that you might be able to share or might be able to apply?
Along the lines of keeping it simple, I liked the James Carville Clinton story about if you say 3 things, you don't say anything.
Yeah.
Really focus on your message.
Yeah. That was really good. And man, it really made a difference in a campaign where you can just focus on saying that message over and over, and how difficult it can be for somebody who's got a lot of back knowledge and got a lot of interest in doing anything, but just keeping hammering away on that message is very important and very useful. So yeah. So there was something else in there that I thought that was kind of a Hannah along the ideas of the lead. And it was that same thing I guess we talked about, but it was, don't start with something interesting in hopes of entertaining the audience. And I think that was something I thought was really, really powerful, as far as, we're trying to hook people, we're trying to get them interested. There's the example that they give of does anybody remember that Super Bowl commercial they were talking about? I did. The one with the wolves that were chasing the band. Is everybody too young? I didn't watch Super Bowl. But there are a lot of commercials
I'm not
out
too
there.
young. I just don't remember.
Just don't remember.
Because I'm
Carrie, you
not so
remember.
young. That's why.
No,
It was on my list of stuff to go look up on YouTube that I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember somebody made a parody with chihuahuas later on too, and I don't remember what that commercial was for either.
I'll have to find that. Yeah, Carrie, that's a good one. But yeah, there's so many ads and so many things that are so clever but you have no idea. You just don't remember what they're for. And it's because people try so hard to entertain, and the entertainment's part of it. But if you're not getting your message in there, it's nothing. Here's something else that would be interesting to hear anybody has any thoughts about. So when they were talking about the knowledge gap theory, so it's that you're creating a gap. This was one thing that I really thought, oh, this is really similar to what was in building a story brand. So you're creating a gap in somebody's knowledge, and then you're filling that gap. And that's how you build some curiosity, you build some mystery, you build some interesting thing. And the one that really stuck with me was somebody who knows 17 state capitals might be proud, but somebody who knows 47 may think of themselves as not knowing 3. And, considering the library as a knowledge providing institution, what are anybody's thoughts about how to use the knowledge gap, or how to use that? Does anybody have any ideas about how you might be able to take advantage of, whether it's even in like a meta context of, that kind of, that kind of thing where people have gaps in knowledge and we have something to fill them. So does anybody have any thoughts about knowledge gaps?
Not so much a thought on it, but kind of case in point. I was sitting here the other day when our phone rang, And it was, I have no idea who it was, but the guy was calling to ask me if I knew what the phone number for the local DMV was. And it's like, yeah, give me a second. Let me, and I went online and I looked it up and I gave him the phone number, but it was one of those kind of, it reminded me of, back when people would call the New York Times public or the New York Public Library and say, well, if you want to know, you call the library and you ask, and because they know everything.
Does anybody else still get those calls, or anybody's libraries? I think our library still gets them. Somebody still calls for something every day. I hear somebody, it's like a cable TV listing or something that somebody calls every day asking for the same thing. But it is interesting as far as, being a knowledge institution and people expecting to have the answers. So, yeah.
I don't know if this is a good example of the knowledge gap, but I send targeted emails, and one of them is for kids, and it's mostly parents of kids or grandparents that, bring their kids in. And so our spring break for our public schools is next week.
Mhm.
So I did a thing, looking for something to do on spring break, need some books. And I promoted our book bundles, and some of the librarians came in today and said, oh my God, and it went out today. We got 9 so far, and one mom had 3 kids, and I said, well, it's like the good news and the bad news. So it worked, but now you guys are busy putting book bundles together. So just trying to identify, I guess it's more of I look at it more of as a need, like what are people going to need? And then, well, how can the library fulfill that need? So I do try to do that. I'm not sure it's a knowledge gap though.
It's a good fit though. I mean, it is something that people need, and something that they'll remember, and something that can help fill. Yeah, it can be interesting. People can think of knowledge gaps, and we can think of knowledge gaps in different ways. And we also think of like the needs as, we've talked in a few other books about the problem that we're solving. And, is that the problem we're solving is giving them some more knowledge, giving them some more entertainment. And I think that was definitely something. Going through the book, the other, the next thing in their little success method was unexpected. And I mean, I guess we talked about that a little bit too, but I was curious if anybody, when you're going through there, has anybody seen any good, did anybody see it? Has anybody have good examples they can think of things that they brought to mind for unexpected, or anybody have examples of things you've done in your library maybe that are unexpected that have worked or that haven't worked? Anybody have any examples like that?
I don't know. We're pretty boring here.
It's good. It's good. No, I'm sure we have stuff.
One thing that came to my mind was when I first started working here, and I'm not a librarian.
Mhm.
I mean, as no ixnay on the librarian thing. I know nothing, which sometimes is good. But I had just started working here, and I took a walk around it was like lunch, and I thought, I'm just going to walk around the building. And I walked around the building, and I saw that we had these like bike repair stations.
Oh yeah.
You could pump the tires, and they had like these, I don't know, tools of some sort to put your, well, I didn't know we had that. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, a bike repair station? Oh my God. So I got all excited. I took pictures of it and came in and said, what's with the, I didn't even know what they were. And we had them at each branch. And so I did a post about it, and oh my God, people were just like so excited. And I have to do that again now that it's spring, and people were riding their bikes now a little more. And nobody's expecting a bike repair station at the library, I don't think. So anywho, that was just one example that popped in my head.
That's really cool. That is a wonderful.
I was excited when I saw it.
No, it's very good. Yeah. And those are the kind of things I know that a lot of libraries have a lot of different little things that you find out about that you may not know at first. You know, even though we work here, we may be surprised to find out things. Yeah, and I love the bike repair stations. And I mean, yeah, it's not something we would expect, but it does seem to fit pretty well because a lot of kids, a lot of people ride their bikes to the library. So that's a really cool service. It's a way to kind of meet somebody where they are and make it more convenient for them to come to the library. So that's a great idea. That's very cool. Kara said April Fool's post was books sitting on rolls of tape. Come check out our new books on tape collection. Yeah, books on tape, not as popular as they once were. And even books on CD kind of going away. But yeah, so yeah, catching people with that kind of attention, that's a really cool idea. That's really cool, Kara. Oh yeah, and Aaron. So instead of doing celebrating banned books, pretend they're getting rid of brand books and explaining why censorship is a big deal. That is really cool, Aaron. I would love to see that. That is a really neat idea. Can you go on mic and tell us any more about that, or are you not able to go on mic, which is fine? I'm not seeing the mic pop on. But yeah, I think that's really cool. It's a good way to get somebody's attention and then tell them why something's a big deal. That is a great and a very stealable idea.
There was one of the libraries near here did something like that last year during banned book week, and they like showed a section of shelving that was, you know, full of books, and then they showed the same section of shelving that had all of the books that had ever appeared on the ALA challenge list removed.
Oh wow.
And there were, like, you know, it was a full bookshelf before, and then when it was done there was like 12 books left.
Wow.
And
that's powerful.
You know, and it was like it made a really striking visual image, but at the same time, their patrons I don't know if they didn't understand it, but they started getting all kinds of backlash when they posted this on Facebook, because people were like, how dare you take these books out and all it, you know, and it was like, no, we're just showing you what would happen if they would take. No, they weren't taken out. They're really still here.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be.
I mean, like War of the Worlds, when War of the Worlds is aired and everybody thought the world is coming to an end. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the there's the post. Yeah, there it is from Eaton Rapids area district library. Yep, there's the ones that are all the ones that are
very, very similar
challenged. Yeah, smart. Yeah, that's crazy. That's super powerful. And I thought am I sharing?
Sorry.
I have, go ahead. Hey, Victoria.
Hi. I haven't come to one of these live before, but I've watched the recordings.
Oh, you have? Great.
Yeah. So I'm currently enrolled in MLIS program, but I am a library marketer.
Okay. Oh, you don't have to be. You're a fan. We love you.
So as far as unexpected stuff, I think there's a lot of patterns that we can play with in libraries with people's people have very set expectations for how librarians behave, for how what the whole library type and what libraries can do. And I think there's some fun things that we can do playing with that. I did a series of social media posts on like myth busting. So talking about and addressing some of the myths that I often hear when I tell people, family, loved ones, that I work in a public library. And I just gathered a long list of those, and I had some of our librarians claim whatever one they were most interested in tackling and develop a photo and a post to go alongside that. And we just did a big myth busting series, and people seem to really enjoy that one. The library are a lot more into it than they have with other things that I've tried to send their way. So it was fun in that way.
a good point, Victoria. And it's nice when you can get the other library staff also, also engaged. It's great. Yeah, we love having all kinds of library staff and library marketing enthusiasts here. But yeah, do you have example? What was one of the myths that you remember that was kind of a fun and unexpected one that got some attention?
Yeah, well, I think I did mine on librarians get to read all the time.
Yeah.
So I was running a book club at the time, so I was reading a bit here and there in the office, and people would see that, and I just felt the need to kind of explain that a little bit to people. But I know one of our librarians did one on, that libraries are dying in the age of the internet, and we tackled some bigger subjects that that libraries are just for books, stuff like that. So and that librarians don't need much education. So that was the MLIS requirement had to come up, of course. So
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. Oh, was that in your social, those things you said? Was that in your library social that you put? Was it in
that
there
was
a
in
while
my
ago, or-
previous position at the Auburn Hills Public Library.
Okay.
Yeah, I've worked with like 3 different library social medias around here, but I finally just settled down at West Bloomfield. So hopefully you'll see more coming from me there soon.
That's great. Because I am thinking, and anybody else, I guess, if you're thinking this too, I'm thinking these would be awesome ones to steal for National Library Week, which is in a couple weeks. And we've been trying to think of, it's a neat time that we get to engage people with the library, and the actual library aspect of the library, and not just the content that we have in the library. So
yeah, I was thinking about reusing the idea at West Bloomfield too. And then I also, at West Bloomfield, I've been planning, we'll see if I can get the library staff to get involved with this. I'm still just getting to know people there really, but
yeah,
I think it'd be cool to do like a Humans of the Library sort of like themed posts and focus more on library staff. We haven't done a lot of work representing our digital face for the library at all on our social media. And I'm just starting to take over our social media account. So I want to change it to be, I know authenticity is a big keyword in social media right now. So I want to try to add more authenticity and give us more of a human face on our accounts.
That's great. That's a great idea. Yeah. And as in the book, they talk about being concrete and being something that people can identify with and something that people can see. So that's a wonderful example. It's a wonderful way to connect people, especially too after COVID has forced everybody away and everybody is now virtual as we are now. But yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that.
I wasn't thinking about this until you talked about, like 2 years ago when we were still quarantining books, we did a series of explainer photos of what our books were doing while they were quarantined. And so like I had, like a copy of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park sitting open facing my computer screen, and then I had Jurassic Park on Netflix pulled up. So like it was watching the movie to see if the movie was better, and
that's great. Yeah.
And we had, some of the video game books, we had video controllers and had, video games so that the books were playing video games. And, and it's like, this is what the books are doing between the time you drop them off at the library and the time that they come off of your account, So it was like silly stuff like that, but
that's
it was
great.
just trying to explain to people that, our books are busy while they're in quarantine. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think it's awesome. And I liked in this book, they had some of the like larger myths, like the one that I'd always heard. So did anybody have any when he was rattling off things like, I don't want to give away the one that I had. Well, so one of them was that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made structure that's visible from space. I always totally believed that. I always thought that, oh yeah, of course, that's a huge thing. It doesn't make sense. but it totally doesn't make sense. It's totally small. It's this long road. Yeah, the 10% of your brain, Carrie, that was the other one too. Like, yeah, well, yeah, and like they said, yeah, well then great, then you've got 90% of it that if you damage it, it's not going to affect you at all. So why does that matter? I thought those were pretty neat. That reminded me, Victoria, when you were talking about myth busting and some other things to do. What other thoughts anybody have about the book? Anybody, what other thoughts about the book? Anybody else have any comments or questions about the book, or things that you thought weren't particularly useful or relevant?
Well, this is totally off topic, but I got mine is the hardcover with the, and when I saw it on Amazon, I thought, oh, that's it. That's a cute cover and everything. But I mean, the fact that this is like textured,
yeah,
and it feels like duct tape. I mean, that it's a stupid little thing, but it's, that's one of those, it's like, oh, that's kind of a neat little,
It makes it very memorable with the duct tape.
Packaging.
Yeah. Hannah, what were you thinking?
Oh, just that I think one thing, one of the topics is credibility. And I think that's something libraries can really play to their advantage. Like, librarians consistently get rated as one of the most trusted professions. I think libraries are considered credible institutions. So it's like, that's something that we don't really have to prove in our communications. It's kind of just there, and maybe we're taking it for granted a little bit, but I'm not quite sure that I can think of exactly specific ways that would come out, but that stood out to me and seeing that chapter.
Yeah, I think the credibility is a big part of libraries, and some of the other books that we've read in the past, like Sally Hogshead's Fascinate book talks about credibility, and it talks about trust. And I agree, and I think that libraries can and should be revered as trusted institutions. That's what I think we should aspire to. And I think you're right. I think we can lay on that and can say that that being credible and having the credibility is something that's very strong and something we definitely could use for libraries. One thing that and I think this was in that chapter, and something that I've used before, and I wonder if anybody else has, when you have the large numbers that you're trying to explain, and you're trying to say, we get, I think ours was we have like 2.5 million items in our collection or something like that. And people don't know like what that is. So I did, in an annual report, I started trying to do that same kind of thing where you make it analogous to something that somebody understands. So in the book, it was the throw a rock and hit the center of the sun, or throw a rock and from LA to New York and hit something within like 2.25 inches, and which was more impressive, and kind of making those numbers. And maybe that wasn't credibility, but I kind of thought it was maybe part of that chapter. But yeah, so what I did was I figured out books are about 6 inches by 9 inches by about 2 inches tall, is kind of like, or maybe 1 inch, like an average amount, and then calculated that, and then looked for some buildings in the city that people were familiar with and said, it could fill this building this much, or those kind of things. So I thought that those were some interesting ways to kind of help credibility and help people understand the scale of that was more, I guess, understand the scale of what things were. But yeah, I think it was good. There's some good things over in the chat. A generative analogy for librarians, like, the Disney cast and Subway sandwich artist. Yeah, Carrie, I thought that was really cool. Information dragons, library geniuses. Yeah, that's very good. My
credibility challenge right now is just trying to deal with all of the stupid misinformation that's
Right.
out there. Yesterday, I had a patron tell me that, they saw on the news that the only reason that Russia is doing anything in Ukraine is because they are bombing biolabs that were trying to synthesize smallpox. And it's like, I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I don't even know where to begin unpacking that.
yeah. Well, maybe that's a good time to point them to some databases or newspapers or things that they have to say, hey, well, maybe you can find a little bit more information about this. Yeah, it is interesting when a lot of people to try and combat any misinformation or let people know that there are things that they can find more information about here and everywhere. But yeah. Carry your youth COVID signs. Oh, 3 penguins length arms apart. That's the 6 feet. That's very cute. That's
Yeah,
a good
there
one.
was little dancing penguins on the sign. It was very cute. I think one of the other ones was stay a dolphin apart.
I like that. That's very cool. So anything else that anybody thought about the book as far as, I mean, they had the whole example in there. This one in particular, I guess it was better when the book came out and then after things happened. So the whole Jared story, it was hard. It was hard not to read that story without thinking what we know now. That was a kind of a reverse curse of knowledge thing. It is still an amazing story. I mean, it is from the advertising aspect and from the local person recognizing and using that. I mean, it is just a really cool story. The truth ads they talked about too from the smoking from the television. I didn't know that they worked. I didn't think that they worked. It was interesting that they had some research that showed that they worked. But they definitely were memorable. I mean, I think it was hard not to be watching TV at that time and see that. But one other thing that I thought was really interesting, and just if anybody caught this or has any comments on it, was the thing where the teacher talking to students and the students asking, when am I ever going to use this? And I'd never heard this before. So it was the, when am I ever going to use algebra? And they tell them never. You're never going to have to do this again. You won't have to do this calculation again, but you're going to have to do a lot of other things that you're going to have to do logic. And the example that really stuck with me was the, you don't lift weights on the chance that you're going to be lying down in the street and somebody's going to drop a barbell on your chest and you're going to have to lift it off. You lift weights for do other things. So I thought that little idea of, that it's strength training, that it's mental strength training was pretty interesting. Anybody else catch that or have any thoughts about that or anything like any way to, what I was trying to think of was how could I apply that to other messaging and other things that we could do, but I'm not sure. There wasn't really a question in there, so but what else? Any last thoughts about the book, about what things you might be able to do with this? If you get the emails, there was a little success poster that talked about all the different kinds of things that go along with it. So hopefully that's something helpful to remember. But any last thoughts about anybody who thinks that this was this a useful book? Was this something that you think you'll be able to apply and be able to refer back to? And what about, anything else about that? Anybody like to share?
I think one thing I found heartening is that, they talk about they took the group of students that didn't know anything about marketing and taught them these principles, and they were able to actually produce effective ads. And so that made me feel heartened that okay. Like, because I think sometimes I get discouraged. We read these books and I get really good ideas, and then I feel like I have trouble implementing them. But that, you know, you can still be pretty new at some of these principles and be able to produce something effective or more effective. So that made me feel optimistic.
It's like my son he's a freshman in high school, and he is right now taking a 2D art class. And the project that they are working on right now is that they are supposed to create a brochure, you know, the trifold brochure for anything in town. And you know, they got to pick what they were doing. And so he was like, well, I'm gonna do one for the park. It's like, okay. And so he's doing it, and I'm going, well, you know, if you do this, you know, do that. And I'm sitting there thinking with my marketing brain, how, you know, and I'm trying to give him suggestions on what he can do to make his brochure better. And he came home from school yesterday and he said, my teacher told me I'm not supposed to talk to you about my project anymore. I'm like, okay, well,
oh no, it's too good.
Because you're telling me what to do and how to do it, and I'm supposed to be figuring it out for myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm out.
Well, that's encouraging then, in the wrong way for him, I guess, but encouraging that that things are sticking and things are working. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think again, anybody else have any last thoughts on the book?
I know Mary mentioned stories when we first started here, and you know, at our library, they've done a great job over the years of collecting testimonials and getting to know and build good relationships with patrons. So anytime I need to talk with someone about something, an article that I'm working on or something, I'm usually able to locate someone who is willing to share their story with us, which is awesome. But one of the issues that I've had, and I've got an extensive background doing interviews in journalism and in oral histories, but I've had some difficulty getting what I think to be like our most compelling sort of stories, because you know, I think it's really compelling to ask people, what are some challenges that you face that the library has helped you get through, and you know, stuff like that. But people don't want to answer those questions. They kind of skirt around it and tell me like, well, here's how the library helped me with something that was kind of more like, you know, for example, I had a librarian tell me that this one patron has a child who is a reluctant reader, and through coming to the library and using the library programs regularly, they started to engage more with reading. They built up a good relationship with librarians and felt more motivated. And I'm like, oh, that's a perfect story. So I reach out, and of course she doesn't want to say that her child is a reluctant reader now that it's on tape. And so have any tips for how to handle that sort of thing? I don't know if anyone else has had struggles with that.
It's a great question. Yeah. Donna,
and I'll show you one, but I made these little things. Wait.
Yep.
And it's just a little
Library
half
Lovers
sheet,
Month.
and we gave those out in February with every checkout at all of our branches. And it's like, you know, just write down why you love our library. I don't care if you put your name on it or not. I just give us, and we got back so many of those. And it was really kind of encouraging, because we had all of these people making all of these comments about why they loved our library, you know, and what does our library do to, you know, enrich their lives. And so now I've got like an entire folder of marketing material that I can use for, you know, and whether it's just a single line, or I had one gal, let me pull it back out here, because where did it go? She wrote this kind of amazing poem. And I mean, like, typed it up, and glued it.
No, that's funny. We did that too, and we got a poem back as well.
And you know, and it's like, do you mind if I use this? Can I, you know, I would love to publish this. And she was like, yeah, that was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great example. And yeah, like Lisa's saying the same thing in the chat, like had people fill out those, but it's hard to get people to talk, like you were saying, Victoria, about their struggles and about what they are. Carrie, gonna look for ways to use the traditional parables. Yeah, Carrie, that's a great idea. They talked about the parables and try to look how those can be. So maybe that's something, Victoria. Maybe it's looking at the parable angle of the example and maybe making it analogous to yeah, like the Good Samaritan story or things like that, and maybe getting people to talk about something that they're more familiar with. Yeah, it can be tricky. He did have the they did have the example in the store in the book about the different types of stories, and I thought that was something cool. Anybody else have ideas for Victoria about how anybody's had some success in gathering a story that you thought might have been a little difficult, Mary?
Well, the only thing I was thinking of is we did kind of a similar thing, why do you love the library? And I just did it through email, so people emailed these
Yeah,
things back. And then I had the librarian read them and we videoed them.
oh, nice.
I stole that idea from, I think, the Cincinnati Library. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, I stole the idea.
I like that one.
And-
Thank you.
And it was, so the patron is anonymous, or you could use, their first name or something, but they have a relationship with the librarian. So if they mention that, so the librarian knows who the person is. And when they read it, I wrote it up and I had them read it without reading it first. So you could get their emotion,
Oh,
you
nice.
know, a real emotion. And I just use my my camera. I mean, my phone. And that worked really well. So I need to do that again, because that was a couple of years ago. Well, it was before the pandemic, of course.
Yeah.
But that was a way to get the stories without putting the patron on the spot, I guess I would say. And it
Yeah.
worked pretty well.
Good way. Yeah, mean tweets. Yes, Hannah points out, yes, mean tweets. And yeah, Carrie too. They both came out. But yeah, mean tweets would be a fun thing to ape for this kind of thing.
Our suggestion box is ripe with
Oh man, that is great. At least, yes, that would be so much fun. Have the director read the director and the librarian read the mean tweets. Victoria, something else that I'll suggest is a book that we read. I don't know how long ago. I think I don't know how long you've been a member, Victoria, but maybe about a year ago. I think we read this one. It was called Stories That Stick by Kinder Hall. So if you hadn't read that one before, check that one out, because she's got an interesting way when you do want to try and talk to somebody about what's their story. Like she says the same thing you're saying. When you go at them with, tell me your story, people are like, oh, I don't know. I don't have a story. It's just a thing. It's just what happened. It's just, I don't really know. But then if you can make them attach it to like a place or and then that might evoke some emotions that will get them to tell that. Yeah, and Carrie, she had some, she did in the book, she had some really good lead questions to try and get to how to get somebody to draw out their story from them. So it'd be a cool thing.
Didn't she have some worksheets too?
I think she did, Donna.
Were we, because I was looking to see, I don't have that one on my bookshelf here. I think it's at my bookshelf at home.
Yeah.
But as I'm thinking about it, I thought she had some downloadable worksheets that kind of walked you through the process too.
I think she did. I'll see if I can find those too. So yeah, but they were, she gave us some good stuff. So we have a few minutes left. Anybody have anything, any other library marketing challenges they're working through, or things that they might want to ask the rest of the group about anything about library marketing? And we got several marketing and library minds here. So anybody got anything going on that they're struggling through or want to check out?
not so much that I'm struggling, but I started I redid and am reusing my program planning form.
Okay, great.
And it's got, program overview. How's the room going to be set up? How are we paying for this? Where's all of our publicity and promotions going to go?
Nice.
I mean, it's like 6 pages, any other information that marketing and events needs to know. Do we need to do a book display? Do we need to do a bibliography? Checklist for the space before the program, checklist for the space after the program, and an evaluation on how the program went.
Nice.
And I did these, I created them, and then when we stopped doing anything in person, but using them, and now we're starting to get back into in-person programming again. So I've been filling those out the past 2 weeks.
That's great. Yeah, if you want to share that with the group, share that with me, Donna. We can share with the group. I think everybody would find that really useful. Does anybody else use checklists like that? Anybody that has any other things like that? If you ever want to share them, please. Yeah. What other things? What do people have things going on for Library Week? Anybody have anything planned for National Library Week? It's in 2 weeks. So curious. Anybody got any ideas or plans to go up? Oh, and Hannah, you have something in Asana. Oh, Asana. How's Asana work? You like Asana?
Yeah, because we're able to create templates and then just keep copying them for whatever the new thing is. So
that's awesome.
Our events and exhibitions librarians really organized in that system. And it's, for me, I like to use it to do my communications content planning.
Oh yeah.
Because I can use the calendar view and start adding things in. But yeah,
that's
we
really
like it.
Cool. Yeah. If anybody else uses Asana. Yeah, Basecamp, another good solution. Yeah. I've looked into Asana a little bit, and I think our team has looked at it. That's really cool. Be interesting to see. Lisa, you use a Google form that does the same thing. If you don't know how to share it outside the Google network, if you want to send me the link, I can see if we can figure out how to get that to others. Kara, presentation plan for students about libraries and current book challenges. Do you mean the books that are currently like hot topics about being like, hey, this book shouldn't be in libraries? Is that what you're talking about when you say book challenges? Or is it reading challenges? We'll wait and see if that answer comes up. Oh, yeah, book challenges in the news. Yep. Hot item. We're kind of staying a little away from that. We're a government run library, and we're a little nervous about what kind of attention that might bring. But that's a good one. And a challenge like a bingo board. Soft furniture is returning. Very good, Angie. That's exciting. A lot of the soft stuff hasn't done that. And collected love about the library. Yeah, I love my library. Lisa, lift up little readers. Find free Fridays. Nice. How many are, well, I guess, I don't know if anybody could, how many are find free? Or anybody, you guys? Yeah, we just went find free about, well, we went find free kind of at the beginning of COVID, and then we officially made it part of something. So yeah, find free is, that'll be interesting to see find free Fridays, Lisa, how that goes. National Library Week 5th annual Peeps Diorama virtual contest. Carrie, that sounds so cool. So so this is little like shoebox dioramas with Peeps as the characters?
Yeah, and it's all ages. So we get a full range of very artistic to preschool style, and it's judged by staff. So it's always fun for us as it is for the people participating.
That sounds really cool. These are awesome. Thank you, everybody, for sharing all this stuff. Find Free in Fargo, Find Free October 2020. Yeah. This is great. This is so cool. And Angie, you said you're going Find Free in time for the summer. That is, yeah. Find Free has been, we found that people really valued that. And our city council even voted to wipe out old fines. So that was a big deal. But well, thanks. Well, we are just about at the end, but before we go, I want to do a drawing. So Victoria, pick a number between, let's see, how many do we have? 5, 10, 14, 1 and 13.
With 4.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Victoria, you chose your own number. You win a copy of the book for next month, which is Belong, by Radha. I can't remember her last name right now. It's a departure from marketing, but I think it should be a lot of fun. It should be a good book to read. So I will connect with you and get your information and get you a copy of that book in whatever format you like. So thank you so much, everybody. Hope this was a good time, a good use of everything. Oh yes, Angie getting married. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, that's right. Books. So congratulations, Angie. That's awesome. Very excited for you. And thank you so much, everybody. And I'll see you on social and email, and look forward to seeing you all next month.
Bye.